is baseball night in the strangely warm but still Christmassy New York, and we are here in our Manhattan studios. It is presented by Land Rover. I'm Doug Williams, alongside Daily News baseball columnist John Harper, Daily News baseball writer Anthony McCarron. We're going to get Salicata all fired up today. He'll join us in just a bit.
Not hard to do.
We begin, though, with the news of the day as it pertains to the Mets. As we take the lead, it's brought to you by Land Rover. According to multiple reports, the Mets are nearing a deal with outfielder Alejandro De Aza, who they would envision platoon in center field with Juan Lagares. According to Fox Sports' Ken Rosenthal, the deal is for 1 year, $5.75 million, possibly another $1.25 with incentives. De Aza played for the Orioles, Red Sox, and Giants last season, hit .262 with 7 homers and 35 RBIs in 114 games. All right, Harp, what do we think of the deal?
Well, to listen to the Mets, it makes sense. He hits well against right-handed pitching. He fits in with Lagares. They think Lagares still can take another step and become maybe even a full-time center fielder. But obviously, I just think this is not enough. And Mets fans are screaming about it, and rightly so. They talked a lot about when Mets fans come to the ballpark, they're going to go out and spend more money. They haven't spent a lot this winter. There's a lot of money coming off the books. So why not go get Cespedes? He's a big-time bat. I think they need another big-time bat in that lineup. If not, at the very least, if you're not going to do that, then why not wait on Denard Span? See, he's a better player than De Aza, that's for sure. Why not see if he's healthy coming off the hip surgery? He's going to showcase in January. You know, I just think they're trying to do this, put it piece together, and if all things go right, it could go well for them next year. But they're also eroding the goodwill that they finally had the fans on their side. Fans screaming for years about not spending. They go to the World Series, now fans are screaming again. How much is that worth, just alone, in terms of bringing the fans back to the ballpark? I'm not sure. I don't understand the strategy.
So no oodles of fan goodwill for a guy who they project as a platoon center field guy who played all of one game in center last year.
Well, that's another thing.
Yeah, I mean, he was a starting center fielder with the White Sox, but that was a few years ago now, and he hasn't really played regularly at that position. So you got to wonder, you know, I think this is really, you know, it's the sort of thing they wanted to do, the depth kind of thing, but you know, I mean, no fan was looking for De Aza. Everybody was looking for a bigger name, and there are bigger name outfielders out there, obviously.
Right, so you could separate De Aza, Span, and Parra from a guy like Cespedes. Those would have been totally two different types of signings. But why didn't they opt for Span or Parra, guys that are slightly more proven, probably? De Aza played for 3 different teams last year. He is a 4th outfielder, technically, when you look at his stats.
And what I'm hearing from Mets people is that they basically, I think they just didn't want to get into a multi-year deal. And I think that's that they think it would have taken for Span or Parra. And they want to limit themselves. They do think that Lagares has more. Last year, you know, the elbow, everything else kind of got in his head. And he, for whatever reason, maybe the money, too, he signed that contract, seemed to put on a little weight, didn't have a good year. They think he can get back to being a guy they thought he was going to be, maybe become the full-time guy. But again, you know, it's still the same old thing. Why not at least... You can still hope for that and address it with the multi-year contract for a guy like Span.
Yeah, do you think the Mets are hoping that Lagares outplays him and can take the job away and take the platoon totally out of the equation?
Yeah, I think that's something they were hoping about Lagares a couple of years ago when they gave him the big deal and bought out some of his arbitration years going forward. I mean, it's really all there for Lagares to take the job. I mean, he didn't play well last year. Last year was kind of a lost year for a developing player that the Mets had high hopes for. You know, I mean, I don't think John made a good point about the commitment. You know, it's amazing how like the lack of having to make a commitment to a guy is a valuable thing these days. But the Mets I don't think they wanted to have a guy they had to give a 3-year deal to because they didn't want this sort of looming over Lagares if he could indeed seize the job.
And really quickly, you think they gave him too much money? You think 5.75 is too much?
I mean, if he can 800 OPS against you know, against righties, I mean that's probably worth it. But I mean, it's a part-time player for that kind of money for a team that we hear that doesn't want to go after the big money guys who could play against someone every day.
Yeah, if he gets 400 bats, then and he puts up some numbers, then it is worth it. If not, then yeah, it's not. And the one other thing, it's putting a lot of pressure on, you know, the fact that David Wright, Darno's got to stay healthy, those guys have to stay healthy, and Conforto's really got to turn into a star overnight, or this team's not going to have enough.
A lot of ifs, especially after this